Good morning, Miss Starr. Good morning. Would you state and spell the name Kelly Starr for the court clerk? Kelly, Kellie, Starr, Starr. To be clear, that is not the name that you presently use, correct? Right. But we've all agreed that we're going to call you Kelly Starr today. Yes. Please tell us some of the other names that you have used in the past. Kelly Hall, Kelly Jeffries. And where are you from, Miss Starr? Cherryville, North Carolina. Did you grow up there? Yes. You don't live there anymore, do you? No. Other than the prosecution team and law enforcement, do you recognize anybody in the room? Yes. Who do you recognize? Pedro Gutierrez and Frank White. Do you know Pedro Gutierrez by any other names? Magoo, Inferno, Light. And would you identify him by an article of clothing that he's wearing and where he's sitting? White shirt. And where is he sitting? Right there. Let the court reflect. One more question. Several white shirts. Is he wearing glasses or not wearing glasses? Wearing glasses. Wearing glasses. All right. And where? Is he closest to the wall? Right. Is he closest to the wall? Yes, sir. All right. The court, for the record, will reflect that the witness has identified Defendant Gutierrez. And do you recognize anybody else at that table? Frank White, James Baxton. Would you identify him by where he is sitting and an article of clothing? A blue shirt with the black guy, other black guy right there. And you know that individual as Frank White? Yes, sir. And you also know him to be named James Baxton? Yes. We would ask the record to reflect that the witness has identified the defendant, James Baxton. All right. At that table, is he the first, second, third, or fourth person? Second. Second. The record will reflect that she has identified defendant Baxton. Miss Starr, you have met these individuals previously, correct? Yes. Where did you meet them? New York State Department of Corrections. At the time that you met them, were you operating as a confidential human source for the Federal Bureau of Investigation? Yes. And were you wearing a recording device on several of the occasions upon which you met them? Yes. Now, we'll come back to that later this morning. But before we get that, I would like to get there. I would like to go through your background. Okay. Did you join a gang at some point? Yes. When did you first join a gang? In 2008. How old were you? Around 24. Would you speak up just a little bit? You can also pull the microphone closer to you, but let's not do the body thing. Okay. All right. When you joined a gang, what gang did you join? United Blood Nation. I was G-Shine. Would you explain what G-Shine is or was? It's a hood under the UBN. It was one of the sets. And you use both the words hood and set, to describe it. At the time that you joined G-Shine, where was that? I was in Shelby, North Carolina. You were in Shelby? And at the time you joined G-Shine, was it an officially sanctioned set of the United Blood Nation? G-Shine was, yes. You hesitated there. Was there something that was not officially sanctioned? The people that were supposed to be part of the hood weren't sanctioned. Is there a term for that? They were dubs, they were dubs? Yeah. Have you heard the expression false claiming? Yeah. So the group of individuals that you joined who were holding themselves out as G-Shine were, in fact, false claiming that association at that time, right? Right. Did you, or that set, subsequently get, I believe the expression is, real right? Yes. In your years as a gang member, have you belonged to more than one set or hood? Yes. In the United Blood Nation, what are some of the hoods or sets that you have belonged to? I've been Shine. I've been Pretty Tony, a Ricket Hunter, 9 Trey, Imperial, and 5th Street. It's quite a lot, isn't it? Yes, it is. Is there a term for moving from one set to another? Flipping sets. Flipping sets? Mm-hmm. Is flipping sets encouraged or discouraged in United Blood? Discouraged. Were you flipping sets before you became a member? Excuse me. Before you began operating as a confidential human source? Yes, I had. Was that a dangerous thing to do? Very. Let's talk a little bit more about that later, too. Mm-hmm. We all understand here that gang members use monikers or gang names. Mm-hmm. What gang names, if any, did you use while in the United Blood Nation? I've been Lady Red. I've been Lady Hunter, Lady I, Lady Grown. Now, I'm going to ask you with regard to these four monikers that you mentioned. Mm-hmm. Lady appears in front of all of those. Mm-hmm. What does that refer to? Kind of like the First Lady or Lady of the Hood. Okay, the last parts of these monikers were, if I have this correct, Red, Hunter, I, and Grown. Mm-hmm. What do those refer to? The different hoods I was in. So when you were Lady Hunter, what hood or set were you affiliated in? The Ricket Hunter. How about when you were Lady I? I was Imperial. Is that the Imperial Gangsters? Mm-hmm. How about when you were Lady Grown? Fifth Street. Now, I don't see the connection between the word grown and the words Fifth Street. In Fifth Street, they're called Grownies. That's one of their code names for Fifth Street. Do you know why that's a code name? That was just what we were called. Grown men and women. Okay, let me go back just 1 second. Do you know Frank White to be known by any other names? Grown. And when you were Lady Red, what were you affiliated with? Pretty Tony, Shine. Did you use that affiliated with more than one set? Yeah, I've always had the name Lady Red. Okay. In your years with the United Blood Nation, did you hold various ranks in the organization? Yes. What ranks did you hold? I've been a 1-star, a 3-star, a 5-star, a high, and a GM. What is a GM? A godmother. Is that a position of high authority in the organization? Yes. Miss Star, prior to the year 2012, were you involved in criminal activities while a member of the United Blood Nation? Yes. Would you please tell the jury what some of the activities were that you were involved in? I sold drugs. I took drugs inside the prison to different members of the UBN. Now let's focus on drugs for a moment. Okay. So you were buying and reselling drugs? Yes. What drugs? Cocaine. I took heroin in one time. Weed, ecstasy, pills. You said you were taking these into prison? Mm-hmm. You were smuggling these things into prison, right? Right. Did you smuggle anything other than narcotics into prison? Yes. Cell phones. And whom were you taking these things to? Different members of UBN. Which prisons were you taking these things to? New York State Department of Corrections. So prior to 2012, you were smuggling drugs and cell phones into? The drugs, yes. The phones you have to do in North Carolina, not in New York. Did you smuggle phones into prisons in North Carolina? Yes. Did you also smuggle drugs in prisons in North Carolina? Yeah. And who were you taking these things to? The drugs went in New York. They went to Capone, Ungambino. You say Capone and Ungambino? Mm-hmm. How do you spell Ungambino? Ungambino. Were these two members of the Blood organization? Yes. Were they leaders of the Blood's organization? Yes. So in your membership and your activities prior to 2012, you were traveling to other states? Yes, correct? And you were carrying drugs with you when you did that? Yes. Is it fair to say that you were an active Bloods member? Very. You committed crimes? Mm-hmm. Did you also pay dues? Yes. Where did you get the money to pay your dues? I sold drugs. Did you get any tattoos or marks on your body indicating an affiliation with the Bloods? Yes. I'm not going to ask you to show them now. Mm-hmm. But would you tell the jury what you have on your body indicating your blood's affiliation? I have 5-point stars. I have the red fish. It says property of tick. I have 5s everywhere. What was the property of what? Property of tick. What's the last word? Tick, T-I-C. What does that refer to? Tick was my big homie when I was shy. Do you have any burn marks on your body? I do now, yes. Did you have anything prior to 2012? Did you have anything that sometimes is referred to as dog paws? I did not. You did not? Nuh-uh. So you joined in 2008? Mm-hmm. Do you recall being approached by a member of law enforcement in 2011? Objection to leading, Your Honor. Yes. It's a foundational leading question. It's appropriate. Why were you approached? A hit had been put on me. Someone that the police had found a letter coming out of prison, and some people were trying to kill me, so they... Let me pause you right there, because I want to ask you how you found out about this. The police went to my house, and they spoke with my mother. I wasn't home. Did your mother then tell you about this? Yes. Did the police ask you to contact them? Yes, they did. At that time in 2011, did you contact them? No, I did not. Did you believe that there was a threat on you at the time? Yes, I knew there was. And why didn't you contact the police? Because I was blood. I didn't want to change. I felt like whatever happened would happen. Did something happen in 2011? Yes, they set my mom's car on fire. Was anybody in the car? No. Was anybody hurt? No. Do you know who set the car on fire? I don't know their names, no. Do you know who ordered that the car be set on fire? Objection, leading. Yes. Overruled. How do you know that? I was told. Who were you told by? Some homies that were in prison in North Carolina told me who did it. And when you say homies who were in prison, does that refer to other blood gang members? Yes. By 2012, you have been in the gang. You have been in the blood life for approximately 4 years, correct? Yes. Were you again approached by the Federal Bureau of Investigation? Yes. And at that time, did you change your mind? Yes, I did. Will you tell us what, if anything, happened to change your mind? I had just been jumped by 3 Trey homies who I got hit with an ashtray, and then I was held down and burnt with a bottle cap on my arm. I was what they called fourth. And I know this is difficult, but I'm going to ask you. I'm going to ask you for some details here. Okay. You said you got jumped. Does that mean that you were attacked or assaulted? Yes. Do you remember the names of the people who assaulted you? Yes. 5 Alive, Red Hot, and Lady Quick. Where were you when you were attacked? I was staying in Shelby at the time. And they burned you? Yes. They burned you with a bottle cap? Mm-hmm. How did they heat the bottle cap? With a lighter. Are the burns in a place on your body where you can show us? Yes. With the court's permission, I'd like to ask her to stand up and show us. She may. Describe what arm? It's my right arm. Where on your arm? There's scarring up here on the top. There's scarring up here. Are you pointing to the top of your shoulder? Yes. And there's scarring? Mm-hmm. Is there more than one scar? Yes. Were you burned more than one time? I was burned over and over several times. Your Honor, may I ask the court's indulgence and ask the witness to approach the jury box to show the scars? Yes, if that will assist the jurors. Would that assist you? Yes. All right. You may step down, ma'am. If you'd like to walk down here just a bit, so the other half of the jury can see. Thank you. Miss Starr, you were burned with a bottle cap? Mm-hmm. Do you know why you were assaulted in that particular way? If you have 3 dog paws, they're usually burned in on our skin. If you get a 4th one, that means you're no longer part of the hood. So they 4th me. But you didn't have any other dog paws at the start. Right, so they put them there. Did they attempt to burn 4 burn marks on you? Yeah. And you said you were approached by the FBI. Was that after that incident? Yeah. And at that point, did you agree to begin operating for the Federal Bureau of Investigation as a confidential human source? I did. I'll refer to that as CHS from here on out. Okay. Now let's get this out there. When were you actively doing things? And I know there's some terms of art here, but when were you actively doing things in this and other investigations for the FBI? March 2012 until May 2017. You told us already about March 2012. What happened in May 2017? Everyone was picked up. Was that in this case? Yes. And what do you mean by people being picked up? They are picked up. They are put in jail. Everybody got picked up and charged with this case. They were charged on this case and they were arrested, right? Yes. And at that point, did you stop actively doing things for the FBI? Yes. Why is that? I had done my job. You had done your job? Yeah. Were you paid money for services and expenses in the 5-year period between March of 2012 and May of 2017? Yes. Approximately how much money were you paid in services and expenses? Approximately $37,000. After the indictment in this case was unsealed and people were arrested, were there increased security concerns that you had? Yes. And did the FBI tell you that they had increased security concerns? Yes. Were discussions held about the possibility of moving you into a program that had very intensive security measures? Yes. And that's something that we see referred to on television a lot, right? Yeah. Your Honor, may we have a sidebar? Yes. Mr. Wentz, if it will help, that was my last question on that. My next question goes to the $100,000 payment. Okay. You understand what my issue was? Yeah, I would agree with you. Okay. That's my last question. But that didn't work out for you, did it, Miss Starr? No. Were you provided, instead, a lump sum payment in August of 2017? Yes. How much money was that? $100,000. All at once? Yes. While you were operating as a confidential human source, you did some things you weren't supposed to do, right? Yes, I did. Things you didn't initially tell the FBI about, right? Yes. Did you take some money from the United States? I sure did. Will you tell us about that, please? I stole $200 there in a drug deal and erased the text messages and tried to hide it on the camera. So you deleted the text messages that were pertinent to those? Yeah. When you were doing that, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. FBI found out about that right away, right? Yes, they did. Did you also do things that the FBI didn't find out about for a while? Yes. What was that? I sold drugs. You sold drugs when you weren't authorized to sell drugs, right? Yes. You did do what was called authorized buys. Yes, I did. That were monitored by the FBI, right? Right. But in addition to that, you did some drug dealing on the side. Correct. What drugs did you sell? Cocaine and ecstasy, a little weed, and pain pills. When did you tell the FBI about that? About 3 weeks ago. Why? You asked. I was being prepped for trial when you asked. Let's go back now to March of 2012. When you just came on board, began operating for the FBI as a confidential human source. Did you start that process by giving them information? Yes. Tell us about the information that you provided to them. I gave them letters, emails, paperwork, names. Let's break that down in detail. Okay. You said you gave them letters. What kinds of letters did you provide to the FBI? Any letters that I received from different homies from prison, they would write to my P.O. box and I would give them. I gave all the mail and stuff to the FBI. Why were gang members? That's what you mean when you were referring to homies? Why were gang members writing a P.O. box under your control? They would write me to send a letter to another gang member that was in a different prison because you can't write from prison to prison. So I would get a letter from one gang member, and I would have to send it to a different gang member at a different prison. So you provided that service for the Bloods organization? Right. Tell me the emails that you received. The emails was usually paperwork. Different, like knowledge. Okay, of the UBN. Explain paperwork in a little bit more detail to us. The UBN has its own oaths and codes, but every hood has different oaths, codes. So people would send me like their paperwork for their hood, and then I would type it up for them. You typed it up for them? Are you a good typist? Yeah, a little bit. So you were providing that kind of administrative services for more than one set? Yes. And you said you gave the FBI names? Mm-hmm. What names did you give the FBI? Really, the whole UBN and how it was laid out. Every GF of every hood, who was under them if I knew them. And you know a lot of people over 4 years? Yes. Did you talk to people in prison? Yes. Did you talk to a lot of Bloods gang members in prison? Yes, I did. I have to ask, why you? I went up there. I took my money, my time, and I went up there and wanted to meet everybody. So you had spent your own money in an effort to meet Bloods, not just members, right? We're talking about leaders. Is that correct? Leaders, yes. And where is that again? New York. So you really tried to help out the organization, didn't you? Yes, I did. In addition to providing information, intelligence, emails, paperwork, and so on and so forth to the FBI when you began operating as a source, did there come a period where you started doing things more actively? Yes. Tell us about some of those things. I started doing like drug deals for them. And let me pause you there. You were doing drug deals? Uh-huh. Will you explain how that process works? I would find out who was selling drugs, and then we would make a plan to buy the drugs. I would go and purchase them. I would be wired when I went, and the drug dealer, I would get the drugs to the FBI. It's a fairly elaborate process, right? Yes. So you don't want to just go straight to the location of the buy. You meet with the FBI first, is that right? Yes. Okay. Do you recall, if you do, how many drug buy busts you did? I do not. And was that just with members of one particular set, or was that with folks from multiple sets? Multiple sets. Did that include some people outside of the Bloods organization, or was that mostly Bloods? Mostly Bloods. Did you attend any gang meetings while operating as a confidential human source? Yes. Would you give an example of one of those? It's usually you have two different kinds. You have a meeting with just the people in one set, and then you have a universal meeting, and that's the people from different sets. So you go, and it's a big meeting of different members of the gang, and you talk about gang business. So you went to both kinds of gang meetings while you were operating as a confidential human source. I went to a 9-Trey meeting. Went to a 9-Trey meeting? Is there a code word that is used for meetings? A powwow, a 9/11. 9/11, powwow. To your knowledge, and I'm going to now ask this question over the whole 9-year period or so when you were first in and then operating as a confidential human source. Mm-hmm. With regard to that 9-year period, where were Blood members located that you visited? Please give us as many examples as you can. I've been to Virginia, Atlanta, Florida, New York, New Jersey, Baltimore, South Carolina. Did you ever travel either before or after operating as a source to carry drugs to people? Yeah, I took drugs to Greenville, North Carolina. And did you do any drug deals with 9-Trey members for the FBI? Yes. What drugs did you sell, if you recall? I bought heroin. And were you buying these drugs for the FBI? Yes. You weren't selling the drugs for the FBI? Right. Did you buy any cocaine from 9-Trey members? Yes. Heroin? No. Cocaine and heroin. Cocaine and heroin? Yes. So in your time with the 9-Trey, both inside, both as a member and as a CHS, did you become an important figure in the Bloods organization? Yes. I'd like to now ask some questions about the structure of the Bloods. Who's the highest ranking person in the United Blood Nation? Magoo. Do you know him by another name? Inferno. Pedro Gutierrez. Is that the defendant, Pedro Gutierrez? Yes. What was his position? He has the chairman's seat for the UBN. In addition to being chairman of the UBN, does he have another position? He's a GF, 9 Trey. So he's a GF. That means Godfather? Yes. Of the 9 Trey Gangster set? Yes. What did it mean to be chairman of the UBN? The UBN has a council, and which means that he's the head of the council. And who gets to sit on the council? Every hood has a GF, and that GF sits on the council. So every hood or set of the UBN has a Godfather? And that Godfather sits on the council? Correct. And being chair of that is a special position? Yeah. Is that the leader of the council? Yes. Where are the leaders of the UBN? Where are the Godfathers? Let me strike that. Where do the Godfathers who sit on the council, where are they? New York State Department of Corrections. They're incarcerated? Yes. What is James Baxton's position in the organization? He's under Magoo. Are you aware of his title or titles? Acting GF. Acting GF? Is that acting Godfather? Of what? 9 Trey. So that's the leadership? Let's go to the other end of the organization. Let's talk about how people get made members of the organization. You can be blessed in, or you have to shoot 31 seconds. It's usually 5-on-1. I'm sorry? It's usually 5 people on 1 person for 31 seconds, and you get beat up. Were you beat in? No, I was blessed in. How does one get blessed in? Usually females are blessed in. Their boyfriends are part of Blood, and so they just make them a part of Blood. What else is required of new members of the Bloods? You have to learn paperwork. When you say learn paperwork, is that the same as learning the knowledge? Yeah. Anything else that's required? You have to follow the rules. You have to follow the rules. Let's get back to that in a minute. Do you have to have a sponsor, someone who brings you in? I mean, your big homie. Big homie is the person that you're under. The person that you're under. Is that the person who says that this person gets to join the gang? Before we talk about the rules, and we will talk about the rules, can we talk about dues? How much are people supposed to pay in dues? Every hood is different, but you roughly have to pay $31 a month. I'm sorry? I said every hood is different, but you roughly have to pay $31 a month. So generally, it's $31 a month? Yes. What are those dues used for? They're supposed to be used to better the community and do stuff and help take care of the homies in prison. You used the word supposed to. Yes. Would you elaborate on that, please? But they're usually not used for that. People use them for their own gangs to usually the big homies in New York or whatever. They get all the money and nobody in the community sees anything. So the big homies in New York end up getting a lot of the money? Is that where it's supposed to go? Yep. But does it get used for different things? Yeah. Are there consequences for not paying dues? Yes. Will you tell us about some of those? I mean, you could get DP'd, which means you can get beat up, or you can get kicked out of the whole hood until you pay. Do you know individuals who have gotten kicked out of the hood over this? Yeah, I know a lot that got kicked out for not paying their dues. Would you please tell us about that? There was a line in Shelby under Cato that didn't pay their dues, so SI kicked them out until they came up with the money. It's a $1,000 loss. You use the name or moniker Cato. Who is that? K-A-T-O. Who is that? He's a high from Shelby, 9 Trey. So he's a 9 Trey gangster? Do you know his real name? I do not. Do some members of the United Blood Nation or the 9 Trey Gangsters commit crimes to pay dues? Yeah. What crimes do they commit? Robbery, selling drugs. If you know, do the leaders of the 9 Trey Gangsters, the leaders of the United Blood Nation, know that their members are committing robberies? Objection, Your Honor. Robberies to pay dues? Objection as to what they know. If you have personal knowledge of this, the answer to this question, you can testify. If you're just guessing or speculating, then you can't answer the question. I don't know what they know. You don't know what they know? Right. That's fine. That's why I asked it that way. If I may, well, before we do that, tell me a little bit about the rules. There's 31 rules that 30 to 31 rules. Each, you might get a different set from different paperwork that you are supposed to live by when you become blood, and that's what you're supposed to follow. Are those rules always identical? Not always identical, but mainly the same. So they're very similar. Are there, without looking at any paperwork, are there any rules that you can recall off the top of your head as being particularly important? No snitching. No snitching? And are there penalties that sometimes get associated with those rules? Yeah. What's the penalty for snitching? Death. Death? What other rules jump to mind? No homosexuality. What other rules? You have to learn your paperwork, safeguard all blood knowledge, learn literature, and, like, law books, study law books and stuff like that. Okay, and you said that the high leaders of the 9 Trey Gangsters in the United Blood Nation were incarcerated in New York State? How do you run a gang from inside a prison wall? In New York State, they get visitation every day. So usually from about 8 o'clock to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So you can send one person in to get information from this individual, and then go to that individual, take that information, pass it along to another individual. Phones, kite, mail. That's how you run it. But those prison visits are very important, right? Yeah. Let me go back one step. You were a high-ranking blood? Did you know that the people under you were committing crimes to pay their dues? Yeah. Yes? Yeah. I'd like to turn now to Exhibit 24. Actually, let me take this down for a moment. With the court's indulgence, I'd like to break this out into a little more detail. So you talked about prison visits. And we know you did prison visits, right? Both before and after you were operating as a source. Right. Did you pass what are called kites around? Yes. Did you exchange emails with people? Yes. Did you? I know you said you were receiving letters and sending them on. Did you also, as a leader of the UBN, send your own letters to various leaders? Yes. What about jail calls? Yes. In your experience, are jail calls sometimes three-wayed? Would you explain to the jury what that is and how that's set up? Like, someone from prison will call whoever's number is on their list, and then that person will call somebody else. And you were sometimes the person who was called and relayed a call to other people? Yes. And were you sometimes the recipient of a call that was three-wayed through someone else? Yes. And what was the purpose of this? So that the person could talk to me, or I could pass a message to someone else, or they could get in contact with someone else. But for a moment, actually, let's look back at all of the communication methods that we're talking about here. Whether prison visitation or three-way phone calls or passing kites. What's the purpose for the gang of communicating that way? So they can't trace back? So who can't trace it back? The police can't trace it back? Is that to avoid law enforcement? Yeah. Is that to protect the gang from criminal implication? Objection, Your Honor. These are all leading questions. Yes, sir. Let's turn to Exhibit 24. This has been conditionally admitted, and it has been previously shown to the jury while conditionally admitted. I'm going to be laying the foundation now to admit this exhibit. So it has been conditionally admitted already and shown to the jury. Right. So if we go ahead and show it to the jury now? Miss Starr, are you seeing the document that's been marked Government Exhibit 24? Yes. Do you recognize this document? Yes. How do you recognize it? It's an email from my email. You said from your email? Mm-hmm. Does your email appear at the top of the document? Yes. If we could do a pullout of that, would you read the line where your name appears? Kelly Starr Blood Babe _247@yahoo.com. You read Bloody Babe _247@yahoo.com? Mm-hmm. Was that your email address? Yes. May I ask why you used the name Bloody Babe? Blood, that was the name I chose for my email. So that was signifying your affiliation? Yes. There's an email address down below, 99 Deltas. Mm-hmm. Whose email address is that? The FBI's. And I would like to go down and highlight this box. Under the portion that says forward message, would you read the name and address after the word from? OmegaMontana@yahoo.com to bloodybabe _247 at, and let me stop you there. Are you familiar with the sender who used that email address? Yes. Who was that? Omega. He's a hive for the 9 Trey in North Carolina. Do you know his real name? Omar Reed. Is he a defendant in this case? Yes, he is. Had you exchanged emails with him regularly at this email address? Yes. If we could close this out. And you have reviewed this exhibit as part of preparation, correct? Yes. Is it an accurate duplicate of the email that you received from Omar Reed and later forwarded to the FBI? Yes. Government moves to admit. Hearing no objection. What? Are you objecting? No? Hearing no objection, 24 is now fully admitted. Thank you. We're now familiar already with much of this material, but let me take you to a few things I would like to ask you about. If we could go to page 2 in this document, will you highlight that section? Yes, exactly that. Thank you. Would you read the first line of this document? 9 Trey Oath, subject to change upon further developments. And for the record, that's actually the first line in the middle of the page where those words appear. This is the gangster oath for the 9 Trey Gangsters. Mm-hmm. Were you in your tour through the United Blood Nation ever a 9 Trey Gangster? Mm-hmm. Did you take this oath? Mm-hmm. Will you read it for us now? I hereby take this oath and declare my name is 9 Trey. With this oath I now take, I swear on my life to uphold and fulfill all the duties and responsibilities that have been bestowed upon my GFs and OGs and Gs. If I shall transgress or violate this oath that I swore by my life to live by, then this oath shall and will be the death of me. Now, Ms. Starr, we're working with the court reporter here, so I'm going to ask you to verbalize your answers. Instead of using use yes. Okay. So when I asked you the question, were you at some point a member of the 9 Trey Gangsters, what's your answer? Yes. Thank you. If we could turn to the bottom of page 3 and just pull out the no snitching section, would you read the line that starts, these laws? These laws, you are totally held accountable for your actions as a homie and your decisions as a leader. No snitch. Let me pause you there. As a member and former member of the United Blood Nation, what do you understand that to mean? These are the laws for the UBN blood. What does it mean to be totally held accountable? That you're going to be punished for your actions if you don't listen? Would you read the line that starts, no snitching? No snitching. It's been mandated that snitching is not to be tolerated. Any homie that has been sustained and or confirmed as a snitch. And if we could go to the top of the next page, which is page 4. With paperwork or verbal admittance will be held in violation of this law. Penalty imposed. Mandatory expulsion and shot on sight. And let me pause you right there. You said, shot on sight. But what are the letters that appear on the page? SOS. Do you know SOS to be shot on sight? Yes. I'd like to now go to the bottom of page 9. And if we could call out from a 911. Would you read the portion that begins 911 overview? A 911 is the ground point for the implement, implementation, or growth and development. 9/11s are to be utilized for. And it continues to the next page. And while we're going to the next page, let me ask you again. What's a 9/11? It's a meeting. It's a gang meeting? Yes. And if we could, yes. Thank you. Would you read the first 5 lines there? Communication purposes, disciplinary purposes, financial structuring, educational purposes, celebration purposes. You've been to 9/11s, right? Mm-hmm. If I could, what do you understand communication, the communication purposes of a gang meeting to be? To talk about gang business? Talk about gang business. Who talks at these meetings? Usually whoever has the highest rank speaks at the meetings, and then they give the little homies a chance to speak. What's disciplinary purposes refer to? If someone has done something to transgress or anything, then at that time they will be DP'd. And you said that a DP is a beating for 31 seconds? Mm-hmm. Have you seen this happen at gang meetings? Yes. Would you describe in a little more detail exactly how that happens? Usually it's 5 people against 1 person, and they beat them. If he falls to the ground, then he has to stand up and fight again, and the 31 seconds start over. So anytime you fall, you hit the ground, your 31 seconds starts all over again. The next line down says, financial structuring. What does that refer to in the context of a gang meeting? At 9/11, that's where you collect dues. And the next line down is educational purposes. What, if anything, goes on at a meeting that involves education? Nothing. And what about celebration purposes? Yes, celebration. People drink, do drugs. Do meetings sometimes turn into parties? Yeah. And if we could just pull that, close that. Sorry, just close the pullout. I don't have the right words for this. If we could go down to this portion of the page. If you look at the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th line down, it starts, it is mandated. Would you read that? It is mandated that all the Olas deliver their offerings for the hood dues and district fees at the specified 9/11s. What is an Ola? A homie? A blood member? What is an offering for the hood dues? The money? The money? Mm-hmm. And what's a district fee? The fee? Like, the money is supposed to be split up between what goes to New York and what stays in your city. So your district is what the money that's supposed to stay there to support your homies in your, like the 704. Like the 704? What does that refer to? The area code. What area code is that? Charlotte area. So that refers to the Charlotte area? Mm-hmm. Could we go back to page 12, please? And I would like to go to, yes, start there. Do you see 1, 2, 3, 4 lines down, a 2-word line that begins with Billy? Billy acoustics. Yeah, we haven't talked about that. What are Billy acoustics? It's kind of like codes. It's saying that have like saying back. You say something and then they're supposed to say it back. It's like codes that mean something else. What's a Billy? A 9 Trey member. So would you read the first set of Billy acoustics that appear there? Through the eyes of a warrior. The response is, with the sword of a warlord. And what appears on the right? Through the eyes of a warrior means, I love Billy. And the response, with the sword of a warlord, means I love Billy more. So these are used to help identify 9 Trey gangsters? Yeah, I'm going to object to leading. That was leading. I'll withdraw it. All right. If we could go to page 19, please. Miss Starr, what is it that you're seeing in this pullout on the bottom of page 19? This was like a lineup for 9 Trey. When you say a lineup, what do you mean here? Like the GF, the high, the low, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Would you read the first 4 lines of this lineup? SI, inactive GF, Huscat, Magoo, aka Inferno, active GF, Huscat, Frank White, High 020, Huscat, Uno B, High old 20. Hooscat. What in your understanding is the word hooscat mean? Prison? Jail? What is the difference here between, well, first let me go piecemeal here. You see the words SI? Mm-hmm. Who does that stand for? Who does that refer to? SI was the GF for 9 Trey. And do you know what SI is short for, if anything, if you know? No, I don't. Okay. SI is listed as inactive GF. Mm-hmm. Are you aware of a reason that SI, back at the time that you sent this to the FBI in 2012, that he would have been inactive? He was inactive because he was in federal prison. Going down 4 lines, you said Uno B. Do you know who Uno B is? I don't know him personally. Do you know what his position with the gang is? He's a high. He's a high? Is there something special about a high O20? What's the O20 refer to? I'm not sure. You're not sure. That's fine. I'd like to turn now to Exhibit 25. This also has been conditionally admitted and published to the jury. I'm going to lay the foundation now for full admission. Miss Starr, do you recognize this document? Yes. What's the title up on the top of this document? Royal Music. How do you recognize this document? It's codes for Imperial. Were you associated with Imperial at some point? Yes. Is this a document that you had in your possession at the time that you came on board as a confidential human source? Yes. Did you review this document in preparation for this trial? Yes. Is it in substantially the same condition as it was when you provided it to the FBI? Yes. Move to admit. All right. 25 will be fully admitted at this time, and it's already been published. Now I'd like to skip to page 6, and we'll circle. Yes, pull out the table that appears at the top of the document. What is this text table that has been pulled out here? That's the different hoods inside UBN. And you're familiar with Imperial Gangster and 9 Trey Gangster Bloods. What is the third hood or set that's listed there? GKB, G-Shine. Is GKB short for something? Gangster Killer Bloods. And I'm going down to a Ricket Hunter. What does a Ricket Hunter refer to? Crip hunting. To a hunter of the Crips? Yes. And why is it spelled that way with an E? A Ricket? Yes. Why? Why is a Ricket spelled that way, if you know? If you don't, that's fine. On the right-hand side associated with each hood, what is the column on the right side of this page? The GFs of each hood. And I would like to go down the list now and have you tell us who these people are and whether you have met them. Okay. So if we could start at the top with the words that appear after Imperial Gangster Bloods, who are those godfathers? AZ and Stutter B. I've met AZ. Where did you meet AZ? New York State Department of Corrections. And on the next line down, who appears as the GFs? Magoo and SI. I met Magoo. Did you ever meet SI? I did not. I talked to him on the phone. Next line down, Powerful. I've met him. And he's the GF for what set? G-Shine. Next line, Shy Nitty. He's the godfather for 3rd Street, and I've met him. And where did you meet him? New York State Department of Corrections. And where did you meet Powerful? New York State Department of Corrections. And I jumped around, so let's go to the line that's Valentine B's. Wayne O. He's in the New York State Department of Corrections, and I've met him. Next line down, a Ricket Hunter B's. Mikey B and Juice. They're both in New York State Department of Corrections, and I've met both of them. Next line down, 99 Gangster B's. DL. I haven't met him. Ever communicated with him? I have not. Next line down, Eastside Gangster B's. Hellraiser. I've met him. Murderous Mad Dog. Smokey Smoke. I've never met him. 5-Star Gangster B's. Hannibal. I've met him. Fayetta Street Mob. That's 5th Street. Hots. I've met him. It's fair to say you've met most of the godfathers on the Council of the United Blood Nation, haven't you? Yes. If we could pull out the middle section of this. And I'm sorry, where did you meet Hotz? New York State Department of Corrections. What is this section of the document that we're looking at? That is the council and how it's set up. And I see Magoo is listed as chairman. Will you tell us, well, first of all, will you just read who the individuals are in the other positions on the council? Chairman, Magoo. Co-chairman, Powerful. Vice chairman, Shanity. Co-vice chairman is Open. President, Hellraiser. Vice president, DL. A&R, Open. Director of Operations, Open. If you know, what does A&R stand for? I don't. If we could go to page 7, please, and pull out the list in the middle of the page. We're looking at the middle of page 7 here. What is this? The rank and order. And what's at the top? GF. What's at the bottom? 1 star. Are those in order of importance from top to bottom? Yes. If we could go to page 8, if we could pull out the GF's paragraphs about 2/3 of the way down. Would you read that paragraph to us, please? He is also a big homie, but... I'm sorry. How does the paragraph start? GF's. And that refers to Godfather, right? Yes. Will you continue? He is also a big homie, but he is the big homie. There is no one higher or above the GF. He owns his hood, determines the direction of his hood. He determines all who occupies the positions in his LU. It is his job to get everyone in his hood in position to excel. He is to provide a safe home that will guide each and every member of his hood, so that his hood will grow mentally, physically, and financially. It is his job to oversee all that goes on in his hood. The words L, period, the letters L, period, U, period, that appeared in the middle of that. What does that stand for? Line up. Within a hood, and your knowledge of how the hoods in the United Blood Nation work. Is this paragraph correct? Yes. This is the way things are supposed to work. Correct. Are there individuals who are higher than godfathers in a hood? No. What about the chairman of the UBN? He has the last say. He has the last say? Yeah. If we could go to page 9, and without blowing anything up, would you read us just the title of this page? UBN salutes. What are UBN salutes? It's how you salute another gang member. I think you can probably read it on your screen as is. The 1, 2, 3, 4th salute down. Would you read that to the jury, please? UBN or UBN out. The response is UBN or you be nothing. Thank you. Let me just ask you a question out of order, and I'm going to do this sometimes. I apologize to everybody. Have you ever heard the expression pour a drink? Yeah. What does it mean? Well, let me break that down. Is that an expression that's used by members of the United Blood Nation? Yeah. And is that one of the codes or phrases that has another meaning? Correct. What does it mean? It means I have to tell you something. It means I have to tell you something? Yeah. Is that like, well, let me stop there. If we could turn to page 23, please. What do we see on this page? The rules. Now, I didn't ask you, but this exhibit, which began with the header, Royal Music. What hood is this material in this document related to, if it's related to any particular hood? Imperial. And you obtained this document as part of your association with Imperial Gangsters. Correct. But these rules here, do they apply just to the Imperial Gangsters? No. These are UBN rules. And down at the bottom of the page, we see the phrase, Road to Redemption. What does that refer to? That's UBN codes. Are there different codes over time? Yeah, codes change. And do those codes, or I almost want to use the phrase code books, do they have different titles? Yeah. And what are some of the sets of codes or code books that are used by members of the U? The Road to Redemption. Codes change they're supposed to change every 6 months or so. Why do they change? So the police the police will get some codes, and so then codes change. Why do they use codes in the first place? Because you have to hide what you say from the police. Thank you. I'd like to turn to Exhibit 26. This also was previously conditionally admitted and published to the jury. I'm now going to lay the foundation. Ms. Starr, do you recognize this document? Yes. Is it part of an email that you forwarded to the FBI when you came on board? Yes. You reviewed it, correct? Yes. Is it in substantially the same condition? Yes. The government now moves to admit Government's Exhibit 26. Hearing no opposition, 26 will be fully admitted at this time. It's already been published. If I could turn to page 3, please. What would you describe the format of this document? It's a motion format. Like a legal motion? Yes. Are you aware of why it's in this format? Yes. I typed it. You typed it? Mm-hmm. And you decided to put it in a legal format? I had to. Why? Because for when mail goes into prison, it's searched, it's opened. So to get legal mail in, they don't have the authority to open a legal letter. So if you put a motion format and say it's from an attorney and put confidential on the envelope, the guards can't open the mail. Your Honor, if I may, I believe we're at a good place for a morning break. Now, Ms. Starr, before we go on, I would like to take a small step backwards. Are you familiar with the UBN rule that says always blood in, blood out, correct? Yes. Will you tell us what that means? Knowing blood is death, blood in 31 seconds, and you die to get out. Do you recall an incident involving Cato and blooding out? Yeah, Cato tried to drop his flag one time, and 3 guys... Let me pause you right there. You used the expression, to drop his flag. What does that mean? He tried to lay it, like, not be blood anymore. He wanted to leave? Yeah, he wanted to leave. Where was Cato located? Shelby, North Carolina. Please proceed. 3 guys from Raleigh were sent to his house and they beat Cato up. They beat his wife up, and they threw his baby in a garbage can. How do you know that? Because the guys came to my house. They were sent to my house. Was that before or after the incident? They came before, and then back afterwards. So they were staying at your house at the time of the incident? Correct. Thank you. Your Honor, at this time, the government would like to play what has been admitted, Exhibit 31A. There will be a transcript, which Agent Papillo had previously testified is accurate. And I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll be playing that in just 1 minute. Before we play it, can we talk now about your visits to New York State Department of Corrections while you were operating as a confidential human source? Mm-hmm. There came a point where you made a trip, correct? Yes. And who did you go see on that trip, if you recall? The first trip, in 2015. I went and seen Starks, Juice, Magoo, Frank White, and Bones. Tell us, first of all, how do visits... You have been on a prison visit before this, right? Correct. How do visits to the New York State Department of Corrections work? You go into the prison, you have to have their name and their prison number, and you sign in, and then you go through the metal detector. And after you go through the metal detector, where do you go? You go to the visitation floor. Does the visitation floor have a nickname? Yeah, the dance floor. Will you describe the visitation floor for the jury? It's a big room that has like square tables in it, usually about 4 chairs. The prisoner has to sit in one chair, and then the family can sit in the other chairs. So the family can sit, or the visitor can sit across from the inmate? Or beside him. Or beside the inmate? Correct. At a square table? Yes. And you've been to visitation areas at a number of New York State prisons, correct? Yes. Is the visitation system more or less the same in all of these? Unless they're in, like, Upstate or somewhere like that, then it's different. They can only have visitation on the weekends. But the dance floor itself, the visiting area, is it more or less the same? In upstate, there's a glass. Okay, that's everywhere else is the same, yes. Okay, and how long do these visits last? From about 8, 9 o'clock in the morning until 3 in the afternoon. When you go, you sign in and you give the prisoner ID number for the person you want to visit. Yes. Does that mean that the inmate has to come and see you? No, they can refuse. They can refuse the visit? Yes. When? And you said the visit is from 8 to 3? Uh-huh. Around 8, 9 o'clock, yeah. In your experience going on these visits, how long did you usually stay before you were operating as a confidential human source? Until the end? Until the end? Yes. And you would start at the beginning? Yes. So that will be what? 5, 6, 7 hours sometimes? Yes. Let's turn now briefly, and I don't want to get into the details. When you were operating as a confidential human source, you had some kind of recording equipment on, correct? Yes. Were you able to take that equipment through the metal detectors? I'd have to take it off. You'd have to take it off? Yes. And were you able to take it into the visiting area every time? Not every time. During the visits while you were operating as a confidential human source, are inmates allowed to touch visitors? Yes. Did either Mr. Gutierrez or Mr. Baxton touch you during the visits? Yes. Did you sometimes kiss? Yes. Were you able to control that situation? Yes. And were you doing that as a part of your role as a confidential human source? Yes. Now I would like to put up Exhibit 31A and play it for the jury. So 31A through 31G are all included on that 31, right? That's correct, Your Honor. So these are just the designations of the individual clips. So 31A through 31G are admitted because they really have already been admitted. The court's recognizing them today for formal, as your designation. Just for the record, the court reporter will not be recording these clips. Understood, Your Honor. So the clip, the government's responsible for keeping that portion off the record. Very well, Your Honor. All right. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, there will be a rolling transcript, a scrolling transcript underneath the bar that runs across the screen as the clip is played. That, of course, that transcript is not the evidence. The audio is the evidence, as I've told you before. So you may proceed with playing 31A through 31G as you deem appropriate, and they're all admitted. Your Honor, I would like to now play the first excerpt that was recorded on October 5th, 2015. If we could go ahead? You may. Your Honor, may we ask the jury if they like that a little louder next time? Would you? Yes, please. There are sometimes bursts of loud noise, and that's the downside, but I do think we'll play it more loudly when we go through it next time. If we could start back again, and I'm going to ask to stop it at various points, but if we could start playing it with the volume up a little bit. Now, Miss Starr, who is the voice that said, "I'm Lady Red"? That's me. Who is the male that you're talking to in this recording? Frank White. Is there a third person there? Yeah. Is that the person that's referred there as D? Yes. Who is D? My ex-wife. Now the recording is noisy, isn't it? Yeah. Permission to briefly lead, Your Honor. Was the recording device positioned that clothing was sometimes rubbing against it? Yeah, clothing would rub against it. Thank you. Now you introduce yourself as Lady Red. Had you ever met Defendant Baxton before? No, I had not. Had you ever spoken to him? No. Do you know if he knew you as Lady Red? I don't. So you were going in to see him cold, right? Yes. Go ahead. Can you turn the volume up now? We'll try to turn it up more this time, Your Honor. Ours is already up. Max says it can be up. Your Honor, if we could just have a moment. We need to restart the trial director, unfortunately. This may be loud. Let's try it. You just said, "I went to see Starks"? Who is Starks? Starks had his own hood under Imperial. I'm sorry, can you speak up a little bit? Starks had his own sub-hood under Imperial. That would make him a GFO, a sub-hood under Imperial. Did 9 Trey Gangsters have hoods? No, 9 Trey is one that would never had a hood. But the other hoods have sub-hoods. Correct. And what is the word that's spelled variously? Shawanda? Shawangunk? Shawanda is a prison in New York. Is that where Starks is located? Yes. If we could continue. You mentioned Mikey B in that passage we just went through. Who is Mikey B? Mikey is a GF of the Ricket Hunter. And if we could continue to the end. And where was Mikey B located? Mikey B was Shawanda too. What about Juice? Juice is Attica. That's Attica State Prison in New York State? Yes. And these were individuals that you were going to visit? Yeah. I wasn't visiting Mikey. Okay, but to be clear here, some of what you will say in your conversations with the defendants on these recordings isn't necessarily true, right? Correct. Why is that? You have to keep persona, so you have to make it seem like something other than what it is. Okay, if you could play excerpt 31B. Now, Miss Starr, I have to ask, were you eating something at that point? I think so. Were you eating chips? I believe so. Does that work well with body recordings? No. Let's go back up to the top and break this down. If we could play the first few lines, please. Miss Starr, who is Hardbody? Hardbody is under Frank White. He is a low. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. I said Hardbody is under Frank White. Do you know what rank he held? I believe he was a low. And to be clear here, Frank White is a 9 Trey gangster? Yes. When Defendant Baxton said, I might have to toss this bad news out. First of all, who does bad news refer to? Bad News is a homie in North Carolina. Does Bad News go by any other names? I don't know. Do you know his government name? I do not. Okay. What does it mean for Defendant Baxton, Frank White? What does it mean for him to toss somebody out? It means he'll kick him outside of the hood and he'll no longer be 9 Trey. Is that a bad thing for Bad News? Yeah. What is the reason that was being discussed about why Defendant Baxton would have to throw this guy out? He was disrespecting him. I'm sorry, can we go on just a little bit more? When you said he was bringing in a lot of suckers, do you recall what you were referring to? I was referring to him bringing in any and everybody into blood. He was just giving people all different types of stain. Say that last bit again, please. He was just giving people all different types of stain. What does stain mean? Stain is the rank. So was he improperly giving? Was this guy Bad News improperly giving people rank in North Carolina? Yes. Objection, Your Honor. That was leading. We can strike the answer and you can rephrase it. What is your understanding of what Frank White believed that Bad News was doing? He was being disrespectful to Frank White, but Bad News was giving out ranks that weren't correct. Thank you. Let's play the rest of the clip. Could we now turn to Exhibit 31C? Now, if we could go back to the beginning and play the first line from James Baxton. I'm sorry, keep going. Now go to, I'm sorry, can we just go back to the beginning again and restart? This is my fault. Miss Starr, what was Mr. Baxton talking about here? He said he had 25 grams of dog food. Dog food is heroin. He said that dog food is heroin? Yes. And he was located in the New York Department of Corrections? Yes. Were you able to make out what he meant by the rest of that sentence? Something like, but that shit is for like, Spot, you know what I mean? No, I'm not. Okay, let's go on. What is your understanding of what he was talking about there? He wanted to send the dog food to North Carolina so that we could flip it and send him the money back. And when you used the word dog food there, you meant heroin? Yes. And flipping it refers to selling it? Yes. In North Carolina? Yes. What were you talking about in that last passage? That, in North Carolina, whatever, that they're taking pills, or basically whatever comes out is what they want to try. Like if they hear on music that somebody is doing Molly, then people want to try Molly. So, and I didn't know nothing about selling heroin. So that's what I was saying. And what was Defendant Baxton saying to your understanding? I'm not sure. I really can't understand it. Could we go to excerpt 31D, as in Delta? Now let's go back and start playing. There are some names that are mentioned there. Let me ask you about them. Mikey B, you've already mentioned, but remind me his affiliation. Mikey B is the GF for Ricket Hunter. Get closer to the microphone. Mikey B is the GF of a Ricket Hunter. HR? That's Hellraiser. He's the GF of East Gangster. Light? Light is Magoo. He's the GF of 9 Trey. SI? SI was the GF of 9 Trey also. Did the 9 Trey gangsters have 2 godfathers at the same time? Objection, Your Honor. Leading. It is. Rephrase. It calls for a yes or no answer, Your Honor. Well, yes, it's true. It suggests the answer also. Thank you. Was SI a godfather of the 9 Trey gangsters? Yes. Was Defendant Gutierrez also a godfather of the 9 Trey gangsters? Yes. If we could continue. What is being talked about there? It's talking about SI. SI was the youngest to MB, brought home blood. How do you know that? It's in all the paperwork. Did that make SI particularly important? Yes. When it says the first original one that all the big homies loved, what's the big homies they refer to? All the GFs at that time, the original GFs. Let's go to 31E. Now, if we could start that excerpt again. What is being talked about here? He was talking about how there's like separation in Billy's because they don't, sub-hoods, they have different highs, and each high they claim they have their own line. So they'll separate and they won't be one, like group, and they go against each other. So that's, and he was saying that he hated that. And the word Billy's is being used here. What does that refer to? 9 Trey. In that passage, there's a reference to a sister eBay or something like that. Do you know that person? I do not. And there's a reference to the phrase, real right. What does that mean? To be like in the books of UBN and real right? Defendant Baxton says something like, so when you see something wrong, you have the right to correct it. What does that mean? That means you have the right to say that it's wrong. Did that mean that did you understand that to mean that Defendant Baxton had the right to correct it? Objection to the form of the question. I'm sorry, say that again? Objection to the form of the question. He could ask what she understood that to mean. He's asking her in a way to make her, the form of the question is incorrect. Just ask what you mean. What she understood it to mean. Just ask her that. What did you understand the phrase, so when you see something wrong, you have the right to correct it? What did you understand that to mean? That he had the right to correct what was wrong? Moving on to excerpt 31F, as in Foxtrot. Now, before we go back through and take the excerpts, perhaps it would be helpful if you told us your understanding of what the subject of the conversation here is. SI and Magoo had got into it, and SI had tried to kick Magoo out and put Frank White there and put White in the GF spot. And Frank White was saying no, that Magoo was his brother, and he was going, whatever Magoo said. And he told SI, fuck you. So let's play a portion. I'm just going to ask you for some words. Now, when Defendant Baxton is saying, that's my brother, to whom is he referring? Magoo. When he said, my brother got me upset right now with him, what did you understand that to mean? That he was mad at Magoo? Did you know from this conversation what he was upset about? After he told me, yeah, like I understood what he was mad about. What was he mad about? He was mad that they had gotten into it over SI and Magoo thing. Okay. And when he says, so when S did that, it's like my brother's in his seat. What does my brother's in his seat refer to? Magoo is in the chair, in his seat. And the word jacking gets used a lot. What do you understand that? Everybody believes it. If we could turn now to excerpt 31G. When you asked him, "Have you always been Billy?" what did you mean? Have you always been 9 Trey? When he responds, "always," besides blood always, what does the "beside blood always" mean? Because when you become blood, you're blood before you're any set, so you're under the UBN. But he's always been in the set of Billy, 9 Trey. Then you use the phrase, 9 Trey paved the way. What's that? 9 Trey was the first hood under the UBN, so 9 Trey paved the way for every other hood to be started. And he responded, "All day, every day, 9 Trey paved the way." Is that one of those acoustic things that you were telling us about? Yes. Now with permission, I'd like, if I may approach the witness. You may. Miss Starr, what is this document? This is a kite I received from Frank White on our visit. Can we get an identifier? What exhibit number is that? 37A. When you say a kite, what does a kite refer to? A letter. And is that something that Frank White gave to you? Yes. Is that, in fact, a duplicate of what Frank White gave to you? Yes. Miss Starr, I presented you now with 3 photographs and a document. What are those items? This is a letter that Frank White wrote on my visit. And what is accompanying that letter? 3 pictures he took on the visit. Do you recognize the individual in those photographs? Yes. Your Honor, the government moves to admit exhibit, and I'm sorry, are they in substantially the same condition as you recall seeing them? Yes. Is that letter in substantially the same condition as it was when you received it from Frank White? Yes. Excuse me, Defendant Baxton. Your Honor, the government moves to admit Exhibit 37 and permission to publish. Any objection to 37? Not 37A, right? 37. 37 will be admitted. You said there's 3 photos. They're attached as part of 37? They're a part of, yes. Okay. Now that was 37A, just the digital version. That is correct, Your Honor. So it's 37A is admitted because 37 is admitted. Thank you, Your Honor. Miss Gilmore. Miss Starr. I'm sorry, Your Honor. I'm getting old. I think we knew who you meant. Miss Starr, can you read this document? Family, I never accepted the call. Dark, S.I., made against Goo. He's my brother for life like you all are. Continue to be all in together. I love Goo. Got Billy. Goo is still the chair. Mikey the co. Mikey stops the 7 hood. The subs remain at 5. Stay grown. Are you able to read the signature that's below that? Solemnly, it says grown and it says FW down there. And do you know FW to stand for something? Frank White. And I'm going to show you the other side. Would you please read that? Put your number in my phone, 347-470. Tell GL you visit me today, and I said to try to visit me tomorrow, and I send my grown, and to lock my number in my phone. Let me ask you a few questions about this document. Is this a document that was given to you by Defendant Baxton during your visit with him? Yes. He trusted you to give you this document? Yes. Why? Because I was Lady Red. I got high from 5th Street. What were you supposed to do for this document? I was supposed to give it to Goo and pass it around. Did you? I gave it to the FBI. And who is Goo? Magoo. Pedro Gutierrez. Thank you. And with regard to the text that appears on this page, you read Goo is still the chair? Yes. What does that mean? Magoo still has the chairman's seat. And you read Mikey the co? What does that mean? Mikey has the co-chairman's seat. Would you read again the lines after the Mikey the co? Stop the hood shit. What appears before the hood shit? Oh, stop the 7 hood shit. And what's the next line? The subs remain at 5. Do you understand? Do you have an understanding of what that might mean? Yeah, at one point in time, they were saying that they were going to have it where that hoods could have 7 subhoods instead of just 5. And he was saying that that wasn't happening, that it was remaining at 5 instead of 7. But you said 9 Trey didn't have any subhoods, right? Right. So this refers to what? To the other hoods. So this was Defendant Baxton commenting on how the other hoods should be organized? Correct. Turning over to the other side of the document, can you explain what this refers to? He was telling me to tell GL, which is his wife, and give her my phone number and tell her to visit him tomorrow. And what does the lock number in my phone refer to? Means to save my number, for GL to save my number in her phone. Let the record reflect that I'm putting the 3 Polaroid-style photographs on the Elmo and showing them to the witness. Miss Starr, starting with the photo on the left, from the left to right, who's in that photo? And for the record, that's the one where the person in the middle is seated. Thank you, Your Honor. Me, Frank White, and D. And the photo in the middle with the person in the middle standing up with his hands in his pockets? Me, Frank White, and D. And the photo on the right with the person in the middle having his arms around you and D? Me, Frank White, and D. Miss Starr, would you describe for the jury what the background is behind this photograph? It's the visit. It's like the visitation place where we take photos. It's painted onto the wall, or there's something hung up there. Different prisons have different things. Most of the time, there's a painted picture on there to take pictures in front of. So this is something that happens inside the visiting area. Correct. And this is still inside the New York State Department of Corrections? Yes. All right. I know I'm tired. This might be a good stopping point. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take our lunch break. Ms. Starr, prior to going to see Defendant Gutierrez, while you were a confidential human source, you had seen him previously, correct? Yes. Could you tell the jury a little bit about that? I was at Wendy Correctional to see Capone, and it was after the death threats to me from Frankie Boo. And so they had set my mom's car on fire, and we had just... Let me pause you right there. You packed a lot of information in there. Yeah. Your mom's car was set on fire towards the beginning of 2011. Is that correct? Yes. All right. And you mentioned some other names there. Mm-hmm. Help us out. Capone, please? Capone was one of the GFs for a sub of a Rickett Hunter. And Frankie Boo? Frankie Boo was a high for Shine in North Carolina. A high for G-Shine? G-Shine, yes. In North Carolina? Okay. I'm sorry to interrupt. Please go ahead. Okay. After they had set my mom's car on fire, I was visiting Capone at Wendy, and Magoo was visiting Storm. And I can't think of who the other guy's name is. He was visiting Storm. And I passed a letter to him through them to get to him to try to get Pretty Tony and Shine out of the way so they would leave me alone and stop threatening me. All right. And there's a lot of information in there. Let's break that down a little bit. First, let's just start with Wendy. What is Wendy? Wendy is a New York State Department of Corrections facility. And where is it, if you remember? Near Albany? Near Buffalo? Upstate someplace? It's about an hour from Niagara Falls. It's an hour from Niagara Falls. That's Western New York State. Yeah. Who was it you were visiting? Capone. Was Defendant Gutierrez there as well? Yeah, he was on the dance floor in Visitation. And he was visiting with some other people at the time that you were visiting Capone. Yes. And the people that Defendant Gutierrez was visiting again were? Storm, and I can't remember the other guy's name. Who did you know Storm to be? Storm was 9 Trey. Did he have rank in 9 Trey? He did. I'm not sure of what his rank was at the time, but he was a high. And so you're visiting Capone, and Storm and this other guy were visiting Defendant Gutierrez? Yes. Also known as Magoo? And tell us, and the background was that your car had been burned? Yes. So tell us what happened. A letter was passed. The situation was explained to Magoo, and he sent a letter back stating that Pretty Tony was on the wall and that Billy was supposed to move against them. All right, let's take that in steps. A letter was passed? Who wrote the letter that went to Magoo? Capone wrote the letter that went to Magoo. And you saw that somehow on the dance floor it made its way to Magoo? Yes. And in substance, what do you recall the content of that letter to be? Explaining the situation and what had happened about my mom's car being set on fire, about what was going on with Pretty Tony and Frankie Boo. And it was asking for assistance? Yes. Did you get a response? Did you and Capone get a response while you were there on the dance floor? Yes. And what was that response? That Pretty Tony was on the wall, they were no longer, and that Billy was supposed to help? Okay, so what's Pretty Tony? Pretty Tony is a North Carolina-based hood, or was at that time North Carolina-based hood. They're now under Donald G. family, but they were a North Carolina-based hood that did not have the jurisdiction. They were false claiming. They were false claiming? Yeah. And were they involved in the attack on you, or was there some connection? Yes. Yeah, I used to be Pretty Tony. You used to be Pretty Tony? Yes. And you said that in the note from Magoo, Pretty Tony was supposed to be on the wall? Yes. Am I remembering that correctly? Yes. What does on the wall mean in this context? It means they're gone. They're no longer a part of any hood. They can't claim anything. So he was pushing them away from 9 Trey and from the U, or just from 9 Trey? From the U, period. From the U? Yeah, they weren't 9 Trey. They were supposed to be a part of Shine. And when Magoo sent you that note and said that they're on the wall, what does that mean in terms of the steps that Billy's or 9 Treys were supposed to take? It means they were supposed to clean it up. Anybody who was Pretty Tony was supposed to either have to flip or get beat up, stabbed, whatever, depending on where you were at. So based on that note, the 9 Treys were supposed to either get Pretty Tony to flip or they were supposed to be attacked? Yes. Objection, Your Honor. Leading? Leading. And Mr. Creighton has restated what she has said multiple times. I mean, if you could lead less in the future, we would appreciate it. Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor. Do you still have that note? I do not. Do you know where it is? I do not. On October 6, 2015, did you visit Defendant Gutierrez? Yes. If we could play Exhibit 32, we'll be playing Exhibit 32 Alpha. For the record, all of those exhibits have been admitted, Your Honor, and the transcripts were admitted for purposes of publication to the jury only, having been reviewed by Special Agent Pupillo. All right, so Disc 32, Exhibit 32, was specially admitted by Special Agent Pupillo. Now all the other 32s they are already admitted. These are just designations. Yes, they are designations of portions of 32. 32A through 37J are just designations, and 32T, the transcripts, also have been admitted as to an aid to the jurors. The transcript will not be available in the jury room. So 32A through 37J are appropriately designated as already portions of admitted 32, and they may be published. Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Starr, whose voices do we hear on this excerpt? Mine and Goo's. And are you referring to the defendant, Pedro Gutierrez? Yes. I'd like to start now by playing the first portion of this. Would you tell us what you were trying to tell Pedro Gutierrez here? I was given a story of why I was coming up there to visit him. And you say giving a story. Was it true? I was supposed to go in to see him, so I had to tell him that there was a reason I was coming up there. And in broad outlines, what was the story that you were telling him? That I wanted to, set some things straight that had been said about me by other people that weren't true, so I had wanted to talk to him face to face. Had you discussed the story with the FBI before you came to visit him? Yes. Now, I paused it here to ask you about the line about, I didn't take up my money like you said because I paid for everything. I didn't. Was that part of the story? No, that was something that had been said about me. I didn't take any money, like he said. Had you been accused of something in the past? Yeah. What was it that you had been accused of? Taking money from Capone. Taking money. Okay, thank you. Somebody by the moniker P. Banger is mentioned here. Who is P. Banger? P. Banger used to have the high for the 9 Trey at one point in time. Was that a high Trey? Excuse me. Was that a high in a particular region or location? P. Banger was from New York, but he had the high. He has homies like everywhere. North Carolina and Virginia. P. Banger did. Thank you. Magoo said, but I never had nothing to say about you other than coming to see me. Would you explain that? Yeah. He had asked me to come see him. Like, after I had seen him on the dance floor the first time, he had wrote me and asked me to come visit him, and I never went up there. You had visited other leaders of the Bloods in New York. Mm-hmm. Why didn't you go see Defendant Gutierrez? He has, like, a schedule that you have to kind of be penciled in for. Sometimes you can't just pop up on his schedule. So if he asks you to come, you can come. And he asked you to come at some point? Yeah, but I didn't go. Why not? I chose not to go. I'd like to move now to excerpt 32B, as in Bravo. Now I'm going to go back through this, and I'm going to take some very short excerpts with Brenda's assistance here. Let's start at the beginning. Defendant Gutierrez said something like, still down in the N/. What does that refer to? North Carolina. Why do those words signify North Carolina? You slash out the C, so N/NC. So will 9 Treys and Bloods use slashes and letters substitutions in speech as well as in writing? Yes. Defendant Gutierrez said, Cherryville. Mm-hmm. Yes? What does that mean to you? That's where I lived. You don't live there anymore, right? Right. And he said, May 16th? That's my birthday. Let me ask you, were you surprised that Defendant Gutierrez knew your birthday? Yes. What other reactions? What did that mean to you? That he knew. I'm going to ask you to speak up, please. That he knew where I was at. That he knew my birthday. He can find me. He could find you? Yeah. Did that concern you? Yes. Why? He's Magoo. Defendant Gutierrez said, I wrote that box. What does that refer to? My P.O. box. Did you receive Bloods-related mail at that P.O. box? Yes. What does don't know if it's still up and jumping mean? Means he doesn't know if I still have it up and running or not. Play 32C now. Let's go back to the beginning and play the first chunk, and then I'm going to ask you about some names. Who is Mikey B again? Mikey B is a GF for a Ricket Hunter. And Starks? Starks has his own subhood under Imperial. Do you know an individual with the moniker Tombstone? I do not. I'd like to go now to excerpt 32D. Thank you. Let's do this in, I think, 3 portions. If we could start again, please. Who's Frank? Frank White. And who is Frank White? James Baxton. What is GL? GL is his wife. Do you know whether that's his actual wife or just someone he's closely associated with? I was told his wife. What is being talked about in this passage? The kite that Frank White had gave me the day before, and that when it said that Magoo didn't have the chair, he was saying that he had the chair. Was Defendant Gutierrez saying that he had the chair? Yes. And what chair is that? The chairman's seat for the UBN. And that's referring to this kite that we just saw, correct? Yes. When Defendant Gutierrez says that was thrown out 2 years ago just to get some folks off his back, get who off his back? The police. I'm sorry? The police. And what was it that was thrown out there? That he didn't have the chairman's seat. They were trying to act like Mikey B had it. Let's go to excerpt 32E as an echo. And before we start that, there's a reference in that last excerpt to Uno. To whom does that refer? Uno B. And do you know Uno B's real name? I don't know his name. You don't? Nuh-uh. Who did you know Uno B to be? A high for 9 Trey. Let's play 32E. And this is a long excerpt, so I'm going to just pause it here so we can go through this only once. Defendant Gutierrez was asking you about Capone, and you said that he wrote my mom and told something about BS. Mm-hmm. Would you explain that to the jury? Did that really happen? Yes. Will you please explain that to the jury? Me and Capone was supposed to be in a relationship, and while he was in prison and when I left him alone, he wrote to the P.O. box and wrote my mother a letter and called me all types of names, told her all types of stuff. And then the conversation turns to Mikey B again. Mm-hmm. Defendant Gutierrez asked, where did he get that rumor that he got the chair? And you said, I didn't know. Defendant Gutierrez says, that was put out 2 years ago. Then when I was before, I came out of the box. Briefly, do you know what the box to be? Single cell. And I'm stopping right there. I would ask you to just clarify the first part of Defendant Gutierrez's statement. I ain't fall back from that. What does that mean? That he didn't stop being the chairman? And, well, let me not ask a question. Let me go to the end here. At the beginning of that last statement, Defendant Gutierrez says, but you let it be known now. Mm-hmm. What do you understand that to mean? For me to let everyone know that he was still the chairman of the UBN? Move to excerpt 32F, as in Foxtrot. And again, this is a longer one, so I'm going to try to go through it only once. Again, Frank White. Who does that refer to? James Baxton. And again, we hear reference to the phrase, yeah, that's my firstborn. That's my first I ever turned blood. Is that important in the Blood Nation? Yes. Why? Can you explain that? That was, Frank White was Magoo's first little homie. When he got his rank, he was the first person that Magoo ever turned blood. Is that something that's important in the history of the UBN? In the history? Yeah. Like, your firstborn is very important to him. It's like your first kid. We go to 32G now. Defendant Gutierrez referred to somebody slashing your tires? Yes, but he was talking about the situation about my mom's car being set on fire. So Defendant Gutierrez knew not only your birth date, but your mom's car had been burned? Yes, because I talked to him about it. We're going to go to excerpt 32I at this point. There was quite a bit here, so let's go back to the beginning and let's play the first portion. And let me stop it there. You had asked Defendant Gutierrez about people coming to see you. The word Billy appears in his answer. The rest is a little hard to understand. Billy refers to what? 9 Trey. And then he refers to a Billy from Syracuse. He refers to a friend with benefits coming up, and he uses the name Baby Red. Do you know who Baby Red is? Yeah, she has the high floor. I'm sorry. She had the high for what? Floor. Did you ever meet Baby Red? I did not. Do you know her real name? I do not. You repeated the phrase, Frank says she's a dub, twice there, I believe. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? Frank said, it means that she's no longer 9 Trey. She's no good. She's a dub. So what does dub mean? No good? Yeah. Defendant Gutierrez says he's dealing with her man, though. Can you help us with that? Polo. Baby Red was in a relationship with Polo. So is that her man in that sentence? Yes. And who is the he who's dealing with her man or Polo? Frank is. Frank White? Yes. James Baxton? Yes. Defendant Gutierrez says, I remember that brother was right underneath Frank. Who is that brother in that sentence? Polo. Let me stop here, and we'll just go to that next excerpt. If we could go to 32J, we'll go back to the beginning and take this part. Can you start it at the beginning? The only thing that changed was AZ closed all the districts. Would you explain Defendant Gutierrez's statement there? AZ had closed all his subhoods for Imperial. First of all, who's AZ? The GF of Imperial. What does it mean to close subhoods? It means that you don't have any subhoods. You just one hood. So he ended the hoods. It was just going to be one? Imperial. Just going to be Imperial? Mm-hmm. So like 9 Trey Gangsters, right? Correct. What is the name Black there that preceded this? Did Black open his own Black O? Who is Black O? He used to be the GF for G-Shine. And he was, in fact, trying to open something up? Yes. Defendant Gutierrez says, I ain't approved that shit. Nobody voted on no council. What is he saying he got? Can you explain what Defendant Gutierrez meant by, I ain't approved that shit? He didn't say he could have his own hood. Was his authority have been required to do something like that? Yes. And the next phrase is, nobody wrote it on no council. Would that also have been required? Yes. And what council is that referring to? The council for the UBN. And what does it mean for something to be independent? A blood set is not part of the UBN, so it'd be independent, its own separate hood or set. Are there Bloods organizations that are not part of the UBN? Yes. Defendant Gutierrez said, he ain't go through no council and ain't nobody come to me with that. Why would he say that? The new hood wasn't voted on by the council. And is that a requirement? Yes. Is Defendant Gutierrez's approval a requirement? Yes. We'll stop this excerpt now and we'll turn to the events that followed. You had a busy couple of days there, didn't you? Yes, a busy week. And turning back to your meeting with Defendant Baxton, as a result of that meeting, did you make contact with someone named GL? Yes. Remind us of who GL is. Frank White's wife. Now I'm going to ask for a series of Exhibits 17A and various letters that follow. These are portions of Exhibit 17, which has already been admitted into evidence. So if I may publish to the jury? Yes, they're admitted. And if I could bring up Exhibit 17A, please. Now, if we could highlight the message portion, all 5 messages at once. Thank you very much, Brenda. Perfect. Did you see the message line that is marked message number 1? Yes. And these are messages that were obtained from your phone, correct? Yes. What is the date and time of the first message that appears in this list? The date is 10/5/2015. And the time is 8:51 p.m. Did you send this message? Yes. And who did you send it to? GL. What was the message you sent? What's poppin'? I'm sorry, I have to ask. What's poppin' mean? It's a saying hello? A homie says. Yeah, hello, something like that. What's up? And message number 2, is that a message you received? Yes. What's the message there? Hey, who is this? Did you then send a response? Yes. What did you write? Is this GL? And you got a response? Yes. And would you read the message that you sent at the bottom? Yes, sir. Judge, can we have a sidebar, please? All right. And would you read the last message on that page? My name is Lady Red. I went to see Frank today. He told me to tell you to come visit him tomorrow. I apologize for not texting you earlier. I drove all the way from North Carolina up here. If we could turn to page 2 of 17A, and I would like to go directly to the message number 8. Would you? Is that a message you sent? Yes. Would you read it, please? Okay. When you see him tomorrow, tell him I send my love, and I will write him and send his pictures as soon as I get back to North Carolina. And who is that you're referring to there? Frank White. What is the next message below that? Is that a message you received? Yes. And what was that message? Would you read it, please? Lady Red, I sent my grown to you and wifey. Did you tell Goo that you also heard that Dark promoted that I had the family? But I never accepted it because I cherished my bond with him. If not, please explain this to him and why you came to visit me instead of him first. It's because you got word I had the family. Stay grown. What is that a message from? That's from GL's phone, but it's from Frank. You believe that to be from Defendant James Baxton, right? Yes. And in the second sentence there, it says, did you tell Goo that you had also heard that Dark promoted that I had the family? Would you explain that to us? That's meaning that SI was saying that Frank White was GF of 9 Trey. And in that sentence is the word dark. Does that refer to SI? Yes. And the next portion of that sentence is, but I never accepted it because I cherished my bond with him. What does that mean? That he never took Magoo's spot as the GF? And then the last 2 sentences are, if not, please explain this to him and why you came to visit me instead of him first. It's because you got word I had the family. Will you explain what that last sentence refers to? What's the family? 9 Trey. You asked, but he was. He was a dub though, right? Before this happened. Defendant Gutierrez said, yeah, he stopped dealing with him, but I don't. He was a dub. What does a dub mean in this context? That Polo was a dub. That Polo was no longer 9 Trey. He was no good. Play excerpt 33G. May we play this several times? Let's go back and take this. Even though it's a short clip, let's take it in some small chunks. That shit don't stop. What did you understand that to mean? If you don't know, you don't know. I don't know. The beginning of that, Defendant Gutierrez says, if I gotta kill him, fuck it. What does that mean? If I have to kill him, fuck it. He mean he's going to kill Polo. He come up here, I'm fucking with him. That's what's up. What did you understand that to mean? If he comes up there, he's gonna fuck him up. He's gonna kill him. I'm not going to try and get away with it. I'm not going to stop. He doesn't care whether he's not trying to get away from the police. He wants them to know that he did it. I'm saying if he crossed my path, he crossed my path. If he comes to that jail, then he comes to that jail. I'm not going to let that ride. I'm going to just stab you. I'm going to do it. You're going to die. Yeah, Polo, he's not letting the fact that he killed Baby Red to be okay. He's going to kill him. Defendant Gutierrez? Yes. Let's go to excerpt 33H, as in hotel. There's a portion in there where Defendant Gutierrez says, they're going to be like, stop, and I'm not going to listen. Who is he talking about? The police, while he's killing Polo. He's talking about the police beating him. And when you are referring to the police here, you're referring to the correctional officers inside the prison. Yes. The last line there is, he in my world now. What do you take that to mean? He's in the prison system. That's Magoo's world. That blood runs prison. Let's go to 33I. After Defendant Gutierrez describes all this, you said, that's a whole new charge, right? Mm-hmm. What did you mean by that? Mean like that's a new charge? The police is going to charge you with something else. Like a new crime? Yeah. And Defendant Gutierrez said, I ain't going to give him like a clean shot. What did you understand that to mean? It means that I'm going to torture him. He's not just going to die right there. Defendant Gutierrez in there said, I'm going to set an example of how you do it. Can you explain that? Do you want to listen to it again? Yeah. Play 33I again, please. Who does Defendant Gutierrez set examples for? Set an example for? I think he said, make an example out of him. Yeah. Make an example for other people, don't you? Right. So other people know not to mess with him. Let's go to 33J. This is a very noisy part of the conversation, isn't it? Yeah, a little bit. You heard this recording. Do you remember this part of the conversation? Yeah. What was Defendant Gutierrez talking about in substance here? He had to send some more 9 Trey homies to Baby Red's house after she was murdered to get all, pictures, letters, anything that connected her to UBN and 9 Trey. He sent them in there to get all of that stuff out of her house. Your Honor, this actually might be a sensible place for a break. I was hoping you'd say that. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a 15-minute break until 3 o'clock. Miss Starr, did you travel to New York State to visit Defendant Baxton on March 11, 2016? Yes. And did you, in fact, get into the visiting area and talk to Defendant Baxton? I know it's one time that I did. Well, I'm not sure of that date, though. Was there a time when you got in to talk to Defendant Baxton, but you were not able to get the recording equipment in? Do you remember that incident? Yes. On that trip, were you, and I'm not talking about law enforcement here, were you accompanied by someone? Yes. Who were you with? Bianca, which is Lady Guns. And who is Lady Guns? Bianca Harrison. And tell me about Bianca Harrison. She has the high for 9 Trey. She's under Magoo, and her boyfriend is Guns, who has the high under Frank White. Do you know Guns' real name? DJ. Do you know any more of his names? I do not. Do you know if DJ has a job? Yes. He worked for the United States Postal Service. But he was a high for the 9 Trey Gangsters. Correct. And what was the area or region that he had some influence over? The 252 area, like Greenville, Jacksonville, places like that, over that way, the eastern part of North Carolina. Now, I noticed you used an area code to refer to that. Is that something you do, for yourself? Or is that the way that you would talk about an area within the Blood Nation? You use the area code for the UBN. Each area code is in a different district. So there will be an area code or there will be a district for area code 704? Right. Did you know Guns or DJ to be involved in criminal activities? Yes. Can you tell us about that? They sold drugs over there. Do you know what kind? Weed. Love Boat, I believe is what it's called, but... Did you say Love Boat? Yeah, boat. But it's embalming fluid. They dip their cigarettes in embalming fluid that you would put a dead body in. They dip it. And smoke it? Yeah. And it gives you some kind of high? Yes. Why did you make this trip to go see Defendant Baxton with Lady Guns? And I'm sorry, let me preface that. Did you know Lady Guns' government name or real name? Bianca. Do you know Bianca's last name? Harrison, I believe. Why did you make this trip with Bianca Harrison? I had been asked to. By who? The FBI. So that's the real reason you made the trip with Bianca Harrison. Right? But as far as the people, as far as Bianca Harrison was concerned, why did you make the trip with her? Objection. Asked and answered. Not as to Bianca Harrison. Overruled. You may answer the question. Oh, I can answer? You may answer. Yes, you may. Okay. We were going to see about starting a council in North Carolina to try and get everything straight. Kind of like they had a council for blood in New York. We were trying to start one in North Carolina. And what would have been the point of that council? To kind of put order, rank order to it. In addition to Lady Guns, Bianca Harrison, have you talked about this idea with any other people? We talked about it with Frank White and I don't want to say, I don't remember. I don't want to say that I did. I don't remember who it was. Okay, I know I talked about it with Frank White. It was a long time ago, right? Correct. And when you went in to see Defendant Baxton, without going into details, what happened to your recording equipment? They made me take it back to the car. They wouldn't allow me to bring it in. Permission to approach? You may. Miss Starr, would you look at that document that I just handed you? You can take it out of the envelope if that would make it easier. Okay, yeah. Do you recognize this document? Yeah, it's a kite from Frank White. You said it's a kite from Frank White? Yeah. Were you given that document by Frank White on March 11, 2016? Yes. Is it in substantially the same condition as it was when you were first given it? Yes. Move to admit, Your Honor. What's the exhibit number? 1, and there's a digital copy in 1A. Hearing no objections, 1 and 1A will be admitted and may be published. Thank you, Your Honor. Permission to stand while I do this, Your Honor? The document camera, that's fine. And permission to publish? Yes, I already said this. 1A is being published, right? I'm actually working from the Elmo, so this is Exhibit 1 on the Elmo. Oh, Miss Starr, are you able to read that document at all? I know it's a little difficult. It's blurry. Honestly, would it be easier if I just handed it to you? Yeah. May I do that, Your Honor? And if we could, with permission, Your Honor, I'd like to publish the digital version 1A so we can try to follow along. Yes, that would be fine. So, Ms. Starr, you've seen we've done a blow-up on the first paragraph of your computer screen. So please read from whichever document is easier for you to read. Polo set me out at least every 2 weeks. As soon as I heard he started f***ing with Snake, I went mad. I went mad until I heard Dark okayed it. Then when Polo took $450 from you, I cut him off. I never accepted no money or gifts over my bond with you. And let's just leave that up for a moment. If I may ask you, what does the word dark in the third line refer to? SI. Do you know what name at the beginning of the first line or who Snake refers to? I do not. If we could close this pop-out, do you recall who this letter was supposed to go to? Magoo, but I don't want to speculate. I can't remember. You don't remember? Yeah. That's fine. Can we blow up the middle paragraph? I'll ask you that same question again after you read the whole thing. I told you about B Money. Also, PB, Santana, and you disregarded. Now your smart ass is hugged up with another snake named Arlene, whose name is caught up with all kinds of shit. I stopped Polo from killing Dark because of what Arlene told Polo. You're not behaving like a smart mind. Communicate with me and you will learn more. I love you, stay grown. Nori can't write a correct sentence, but he's on the line. We are grown, and we must behave grown. And again, the Dark that appears in this paragraph. Who does that refer to? SI. Are you familiar with someone named Arlene? Yeah, Arlene was in a relationship with SI. Close this pop-up and, yes, from there. Okay. I told my son to run the South. I'm getting B Dread to run the jungle. These NYC bozos aren't doing shit for us. I called the town. I will not tolerate snakes. So do not override my cause with your limited knowledge of why. Did Dark ever tell you not to trust FW or anything remotely to that? Now, I'm going to leave this pop-up up for a minute and ask you a few questions. The second line from the bottom ends with the letters FW. Who do you believe that refers to? Frank White. And who gave you this letter? Frank White. To start, Frank White. James Baxton? Yes. This letter was not intended for you, was it? Correct. The first line of this pop-out starting, I told. Will you just read the first sentence, please? I told my son to run the South. Do you know who that refers to or what the South refers to? DJ is his son, and the South is North Carolina, South Carolina, down south. The second sentence, would you read that? Starting at the top line after the word South. I'm getting B Dread to run the jungle. Are you familiar with the B Dread? I'm not. Are you familiar of what the jungle refers to? New York. When you said that, my son, I'm sorry, whom does it refer to, my son, at the first sentence? Guns. DJ. DJ. Is DJ actually James Baxton's son? No. Where does DJ fit in the hierarchy of 9 Trey Gangsters? He's a high. Is he above or below Frank White? He's below. We can close this pop-up, and then I think we'll take a big swoop here for the bottom quarter and just a few other things. Would you read the line that says, tell GL? Tell GL to make sure she add the socks and boxers to the receipt. Love you. And to the left of that, there are 3 words. What are those? Look up Hots. And who is Hots? Hots is a GF of 5th Street. Do you recall Hots' real name or any part of it? I don't. Thank you. With permission, I will retrieve the exhibit. Your Honor, at this time the government would like to conditionally admit Government's Exhibit 12, which is a transcript of it is a recorded jail call, and there is also an associated transcript, and I don't have that exhibit number in front of me. That would be 12 ET. So to be clear, I'm asking permission to conditionally admit all of Government's Exhibit 12, but right now I wish only to publish Clip 2, which is 12 EB. That's 12 Edward Bravo, and also to publish to the jury 12 ET. They're at the top of page 3, those 2 items on the exhibit list. Those will of course be conditionally admitted and will be subject to review when the government moves for their full admission. Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Starr, I'd like you to listen to this clip, which we're going to play now. Let's stop this and turn the volume down. All right, try this again. Now, Ms. Starr, was this a phone call that you participated in on November 17, 2016? Yes. And was that your voice on the call? Yes. Were you talking with a man on this call? Yes. And who was the man you were talking with? Frank White. His real name is James Baxton, correct? Correct. And in addition to Frank White, what other aliases or monikers or AKAs does James Baxton use? Grown. Grown? Yeah. With regard to this call, there are references to a Betty or the street legend Betty. Do you know who that refers to? Hots. Hots? Yes. And I think I would like to actually play this once again because I want to hear a particular paragraph. But before I start, let me ask, did you call Frank White here or did he call you? He called me. Thank you. I'm sorry. The defendant, James Baxton. And what is the substance of this conversation as you understand it? Hot sent out a letter that was talking about some disrespectful stuff. He was talking bad about Inferno, and it had Frank White's name in it. He wanted me to see what was going on. And did you see the line that got 1B grown name in it? What does 1B refer to? I'm not sure. Let's go on. Is it a rule of the United Blood Nation and of the 9 Trey Gangsters to respect the Godfathers? Yes. What's being described here? This fucking Inferno shit. Is that respectful of? It's very disrespectful. I'm sorry? Very disrespectful. Let's go on. When defendant Baxton says, like give word to him, let him know I said, you know that, I'm very disappointed in him. What did you understand that to mean? Write hots and see what was going on. So defendant Baxton was asking you to get involved in this, right? Correct. And the sentence implicating me and 1B, do you know what 1B refers to? I do not. And the phrase there, pushing out of vibes and shit, do you understand that? Writing letters. Writing letters. Writing kites? Yes. When he says, I'm going to put a cease to that, what do you understand that? He's going to stop it. At this time, Your Honor, I'd like to turn to the last of the excerpts the government intends to play today. This is Exhibit 34, which has been admitted. There's an associated transcript, which I believe is 34T, and the government is now going to be playing a series of excerpts starting with 34A and B and continuing through 34K. So as in the previous instances, 34A through 34K are just designations from segments taken from Exhibit 34, so they've already been admitted and they may be published. Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Starr, did you travel to New York for one last meeting with Defendant Gutierrez on the 21st of March, 2017? Yes. Did your recorder get past security that time? Yes. I'd like to start by playing excerpt 34A. Your Honor, with permission, I'd like to pause for just a second, bring the volume back up. We're in the excerpts of the body recordings and start over again. All right, that will be fine. Thank you, Your Honor. Can we start from the beginning of this excerpt again, please? Now, I'd like to start at the beginning of this and go through and take it in pieces. Let's go ahead. Who's Hots? The GF of 5th Street. What's the GF of 5th Street? Is that the same Hots that we have been talking about previously? Yes. Defendant Gutierrez just said, yeah, he playing himself. He got shot in Clinton. He's in Sullivan right now. Keep locked. What do you understand he got? First of all, what's Clinton? Clinton is a New York State correctional facility. So Hots was locked up in New York Department of Corrections at this time, right? Yes. Defendant Gutierrez just said he got shot in Clinton. Who's the he there? Hots. So Defendant Gutierrez just said Hots got shot in Clinton. What does shot mean? Got stabbed. And then what's Sullivan? A New York State correctional facility. Are you familiar with the term keep lock? Yes. What does it mean? It's kind of like you get a write-up and you have to sit in your cell for 23 hours and you get out for an hour, like 23 and 1. So, it's like disciplinary action. So let me understand this. Hots got stabbed and he's put in some kind of isolation? Correct. Before that, Defendant Gutierrez says he's playing himself. What does that mean? Means he's making a fool of himself. Let's go on. Defendant Gutierrez says, trying to go against your boy, right? Hots was trying to go against Magoo. So against Defendant Gutierrez? Correct. Over what? The chairman's seat. The chairman's seat of the UBN? Correct. Let's go on. 'cause I heard that they was out. They was out. They might still be good. Who's the they? Fifth Street. And what does it mean that they was out? I had heard that Magoo had kicked the whole Fifth Street out of the UBN. And Fifth Street is a set or a hood? Correct. That's quite a change in the UBN, isn't it? Correct. Did it take a lot of power to be able to do that? Yes. Now, Defendant Gutierrez, just above that, said, they might still be good. And then he goes on to say, no, I'm trying to figure out whether Montana or that dude, Shy Grizzly, should oversee you all. Mm-hmm. If you put that together, what do you understand that all to mean? He was saying he was going to let Fifth stay in the U, but Hots couldn't stay. Hots had to leave. But he was going to see if Montana or Shy Grizzly would take over as GF for Fifth Street. Had you ever met Montana? No. Had you ever met Shy Grizzly? I hadn't met him face to face, but we had talked over the phone and wrote letters back and forth. That got back to him at Clinton, and they shot his stupid ass. Would you explain that? The bad stuff that Hots had been saying about Magoo caught up with him while he was at Clinton Correctional, so they stabbed him for it. Who stabbed him for it? I'm not sure exactly who did the stabbing, but the homies, the blood homies, stabbed him for talking about Magoo. So members of the Blood stabbed him because he had been causing trouble for Magoo? Yes. Let's move to 34B. Mr. Creighton, can I interrupt you and ask what clip is this? I'm sorry. 34B. I was doing these in order. Sorry, Mr. Wentz. Let's go back and start this one at the beginning. The paragraph in which Defendant Gutierrez says, 'cause, him and Tank Warrior, you know, they had that thing or whatever. Do you know a Tank Warrior? Tank Warrior was under Hannibal. Did Tank Warrior have some kind of rank that you were aware of? Yeah, he had the high. For what set? If you don't remember. I don't. You said he was under Hannibal? Yes. And you don't recall what set Hannibal was under? No. Okay, let me read that first sentence. Because him and Tank Warrior, you know, they had that thing or whatever. Who's that him? Hots. Hots. And then Defendant Gutierrez says, so I wrote him. I'm like, yo, listen, you don't got time for bullshit and like, you know, you're acting like a little girl right now. How would you describe in terms of the UBN what it was that Defendant Gutierrez was doing here? He was telling Hots that he needed to chill and stop going back and forth. That when he saw Tank Warrior, they could fight it out. But under no certain terms was they supposed to send shooters from each other and start a war. Let's go ahead. So I just wanted to pause there. So take a little breath and start the next section. And I want to ask you about the next section. Okay. What was Defendant Gutierrez just saying, as you understood it? Hots had wrote Frank about the situation. And first he was trying to talk good about Magoo. But then in the next sentence, he was saying forget Magoo. And he was about to take Fifth Street and lead a UBN, and that Magoo had been in the chairman seat for too long. And to be clear, this is Frank. Frank White. Grown. Defendant James Baxton, right? Correct. So that just went back and forth and bit him in the ass. Would you explain that? All of the talk bad about Magoo, it came back on him, and he got stabbed for it. Let's play excerpt 34C, as in Charlie. So what's being talked about here? Who he was going to let take over the GF spot for Fifth Street? Who he was going to install as a new GF for Fifth Street, is that right? Correct. Let's go to 34D, as in Delta. Miss Starr, you were laughing through that conversation, right? Mm-hmm. Defendant Gutierrez was talking about people getting hurt, right? Yeah. You playing a role there? Yes. Let's go back to the beginning and play a first little bit. Let me ask you about two parts of that. Defendant Gutierrez says, I ain't going to take it though. As soon as they come through here, I'm going to give it to them. What do you understand I'm going to give it to them? He's going to find them and fight them. Second part is, so this dude A, do you know who that refers to? AZ. And who is AZ? His GF. And who's Powerful? GF for Shine. What position did Powerful hold on the UBN Council, if you recall? I don't. There's a sentence in there, because you have the Shine Boys that's over there. They crushed him like. What do you understand that to mean? The Shine Boys are G-Shine homies. I'm not sure they crushed him like. Miss Star, I really do not want to put words in your mouth. Right, but that right there is, like, I'm not sure. That's what it says right there. Okay, well, then let's go on. You said, are you serious? He been trying to get you out forever. Who's the he there? AZ. So AZ was threatening defending Gutierrez's leadership of the UBN. Right, AZ wanted the chairman's seat. Get their shot off. What do you understand that to refer to? Get him stabbed. Sorry? Get him stabbed. Get them stabbed. Let's go to 34E as an echo. Miss Star, is it fair to say this is about a power struggle within the UBN? Correct. Let's go back and play this clip starting from the top. Who's Wayno? He's the GF of Valentine. And where did Wayno fall in this power struggle? Whose side was he on? He was on Magoo's side. And whose side was HR on? Magoo's. HR, the one that lined this shit up with Hots. Yes. What did you understand that to mean? HR was the one that got Hot stabbed. They were both at Clinton. I'm going to read the whole defendant Gutierrez excerpt as it stands in the transcript, but everybody's listening to this for themselves. Okay. HR, the one that lined this shit up with Hots, spoke to him too. Like, yo, this dude about to get shot. I'm gonna let you know. Yeah, homie, I would never go against you. What does, like, yo, this dude about to get shot, I'm going to let you know. What does that mean to you? That Hots was about to get stabbed and HR was gonna let Magoo know as soon as it happened? Were Shanity, Powerful, and HR also on Magoo's power struggle? Excuse me, defendant Gutierrez? Yes. Let's go to Exhibit 34F, as in Foxtrot. Let's go right back to the beginning, and I'll try to stop relatively at a few places, but there are some questions that I have. Now, there's something in here about the 5-year chair. Do you know what that refers to? Once you be in a chair, you're only supposed to sit in that seat for 5 years. Do you know who Soul B is or was? I don't know him. I picked up the chairman. I jacked it, basically. Nobody voted me in 03. What does jacked it mean there? He stole it. He stole it. Greenhaven. What does that refer to? A New York State prison. Defendant Gutierrez says, in Greenhaven, they're like anybody come through promoting that. What's that referring to there? That he doesn't have the chairman's seat. And then it goes on to say, they're going to get their blown off. There's Mad G-Shine, Mad Billies. Mad Billies refers to 9 Trey. Let's stop at this point and push on. We're almost through this, Your Honor. Let's go to excerpt 34G. We'll play this through once. When he says, those are all Billies, the individuals he's just named, what set are they affiliated with? 9 Trey. Sorry. Let's go on. Do you know who MK is? MK is the GF for the Donald G family. I'm sorry, can you say that again? MK is the GF for the Donald G family. What is the Donald G family? A whole different blood, like a nation outside of UBN. Not part of the UBN? Correct. But a blood nation? Correct. And the Godfather in that outfit? Correct. He's able to walk into defendant Gutierrez's cell? Yeah, he said he was the inmate liaison. Let's go to excerpt 34H. In there, you answered defendant Gutierrez's question. You said, what was up with Hots? By saying Frank. Defendant Gutierrez, a little bit later, says, okay, f*** him. He trying to save him. Who is trying to save whom? Frank was trying to save Hots. Defendant Gutierrez says, I'm putting that shit in Sullivan in motion right now as soon as he gets off that keep block. What's Sullivan? A New York State correctional facility. What shit in motion is defendant Gutierrez referring to, as you understand it? He was gonna get hot stabbed again. You know, uphold and back what the fuck you saying out your mouth, and that will keep going until we bump heads. What does the bump heads refer to? Until they wind up in the same prison. Who wind up in the same prison? Hots and Magoo. Hots and Defendant Gutierrez? Yes. Let's move now to excerpt 34I. Let's pause right there. Why did you say, I'm not? Because I was 5th Street. You were 5th Street? Mm-hmm. And you were sitting at the table with the godfather of the 9 Trey Gangsters. Correct. What did you understand Defendant Gutierrez to mean when he says, what happens is they gone? That all of the people, the ones who are opposing him, will no longer be there to oppose him. Are the people who are opposing him the ones he's referring to as misfits here, to your understanding? Correct. Let's go to Exhibit 34J. Let's go to Exhibit 34K. Your Honor, that completes the government's direct examination of Ms. Starr.